Behind the gilded gates of Buckingham Palace and the towering walls of Windsor Castle lies something the British royal family doesn't want you to see. Not the throne room, not the crown jewels, but a hidden empire worth over $28 billion, operating in the shadows with properties you'll never visit, secret passages you'll never walk through, and tax loopholes that would make any billionaire jealous. While millions of tourists queue up to glimpse the staterooms for £30 a ticket, there's an entire world of royal estates that remain permanently locked away. Properties where kings signed away their thrones, castles sitting empty for over 150 years, and underground tunnels connecting palaces to pubs in central London. Today, we're pulling back the velvet curtain on the royal estates you're not supposed to see. The hidden portfolio. Let's start with a number that should shock you. £15.6 billion. That's the value of the Crown Estate portfolio alone. But here's where it gets interesting. The royal family's holdings span across 23 counties in England and Wales, generating over £50 million annually through two medieval institutions called the Duchy of Cornwall and the Duchy of Lancaster. The Duchy of Cornwall, now controlled by Prince William, covers 531 square kilometers. That's 0.2% of all UK land. The Duchy of Lancaster, belonging to King Charles, is worth another £765 million. But while you can tour parts of Buckingham Palace or walk through Windsor Castle's state apartments, there's a second tier of properties that operates entirely differently. Private estates where no tourist has ever set foot. Hidden features within buildings you think you know, and financial arrangements that critics say allow the royals to profit from public bodies while avoiding the taxes that ordinary businesses pay. The question is, what are they hiding? And more importantly, why? Fort Belvedere, where a king gave up everything. 7 miles from Windsor Castle, hidden within Windsor Great Park, stands a property that changed the course of British history. Fort Belvedere. You've never been inside. You never will be. And there's a reason for that. This is where King Edward VIII signed his abdication papers on December 10, 1936, ending his 325-day reign to marry American divorcee Wallis Simpson. Imagine the scene. Edward sitting in his beloved home, his 3 brothers standing witness as he signed away the British throne. That document, that moment, that room, all hidden behind gates that never opened to the public. Edward VIII spent the equivalent of £1.84 million in today's money renovating Fort Belvedere in the 1930s, adding Art Deco flourishes and transforming it into his personal sanctuary. From the hexagonal central hall, he could use a spyglass to see St. Paul's Cathedral in the distance. 31 brass cannons from the 17th century still line the North Terrace. But after Edward's exile, Fort Belvedere became the royal family's forgotten property. Queen Victoria once used it as a tea house and briefly opened it to visitors in the 1860s. Today, it's leased to the billionaire Weston family, who've doubled the size of the lake and added tennis courts and a polo stud to the 59-acre estate. Rumors swirled between 2022 and 2025 that Prince William and Kate might move in. They chose Adelaide Cottage instead. Fort Belvedere remains sealed. Its 6 bedrooms and 5 bathrooms occupied by one of Canada's richest families. Its history locked away from the very public that owns it. And that's just one property. Wait until you hear about the castle that's been sitting virtually empty since 1872 and the secret door hidden in plain sight at Buckingham Palace. Frogmore House, the Queen's abandoned sanctuary. Half a mile from Windsor Castle sits a Grade 1 listed mansion that most British citizens don't even know exists. Frogmore House, built between 1680 and 1684, purchased for Queen Charlotte in 1792, and called a personal sanctuary by Queen Victoria herself. Here's what makes Frogmore extraordinary. It's been largely unoccupied since 1872. For over 150 years, this sprawling estate with 33 acres of picturesque gardens has sat mostly empty, used only occasionally for private royal events. The public, you get approximately 3 to 6 days per year to visit, if you're lucky. In 2022, Frogmore opened for exactly 3 days. Tickets cost £10. Then it closed again, with no announced reopening date. Currently, you can't visit at all. What's inside that the public can't see? Items from the decommissioned Royal Yacht Britannia, placed there by Prince Philip in 1997, a family souvenir museum that Queen Mary curated from 1925 to 1953, an underground wine cellar that's rarely photographed, and the Duchess of Kent's mausoleum, a beautiful domed temple that's been structurally unsound and closed since 2007. The grounds also contain the Royal Burial Ground, where most royals, except sovereigns, have been buried since 1928. Edward VIII, the king who gave up his throne at Fort Belvedere, is buried here alongside Wallis Simpson. You can only view these graves from the perimeter on the rare days Frogmore opens. Think about this: a historically significant royal property, paid for by British taxpayers through the Crown Estate, sitting virtually abandoned for a century and a half, while the public gets less than a week of access per year. The Grand Duchess Xenia of Russia lived here after escaping the Russian Revolution. Princess Alexandra gave birth here in 1864, and you'll probably never see inside. The secret passages, hidden in plain sight. But some of the most fascinating royal secrets aren't in forgotten estates. They're hidden within the palaces you think you know. At Buckingham Palace, in the White Drawing Room, where the Queen would receive guests, there's a floor-to-ceiling mirror that looks like an ornate cabinet decorated with candlesticks. Except it's not a mirror, it's a door. A secret passageway leading directly to the monarch's private apartments, allowing dramatic entrances during state events. This hidden door was first revealed to the public on Good Morning Britain in 2015, and it's been there the entire time tourists have been shuffling through. But that's not all hiding in Buckingham Palace. There's a private cinema in the South Drawing Room showing movies for the 800 palace staff. A Coutts Bank ATM in the basement, confirmed by the Queen's bank manager himself. A full-size swimming pool where Prince William and Kate took Prince George for lessons. A doctor's office called the Royal Mews Surgery, and a complete Royal Mail post office facility just for palace staff. Then there are the tunnels, rumored, whispered about, and partially confirmed. An alleged underground connection between Buckingham Palace and the Houses of Parliament at Whitehall. A claimed tunnel to Clarence House. Supposed access to the Victoria Line tube station. Most of these remain unverified, but here's what we know for certain. Jack Brooksbank, Princess Eugenie's husband, confirmed a tunnel running from St. James's Palace to Duke's Bar in Mayfair. If that exists, what else is down there? At Windsor Castle, there's something even more dramatic. In a corner office, beneath a carpet, lies a wooden trapdoor. Lift it, and you'll find stone steps descending into a 13th century escape tunnel built wide enough for, in the words of BBC presenter Fiona Bruce, who revealed it in 2011, a whole army of men. This medieval passage leads directly to the street, designed for soldiers to make surprise attacks on enemies during sieges. It's still there, still functional. 800 years old, and you'll never see it unless you're working in that specific office. Hidden televisions are placed inside the balcony at Buckingham Palace during public appearances, concealed by red drapes, allowing the royals to see them all, which is otherwise blocked by the Queen Victoria Memorial. These aren't ancient secrets. These are modern conveniences and historical features existing within buildings that supposedly allow public access, but only if you know where to look. And you're not allowed to look. Now, those hidden passages are fascinating, but they're nothing compared to what we're about to uncover about royal wealth. Billion-pound portfolios operating in legal shadows that let the royals profit from the NHS while avoiding taxes. Stay with me. The billion-pound question. The Duchies. Let's talk about the elephant in the palace. Money. Specifically, how the royal family operates two massive private estates that function like corporations but don't pay corporation tax. The Duchy of Cornwall, now controlled by Prince William, is worth over £1 billion. It generated £23.6 million for William just last year. What does it include? Over 600 residential lettings, 700 agricultural tenancies, the Oval Cricket Ground in London, Dartmoor Prison, Tintagel Castle, holiday cottages, rivers and coastline, commercial properties and supermarkets. The Duchy of Lancaster, belonging to King Charles, is worth £765 million and generated £27.4 million for him last year. Here's where it gets controversial. In 2024, Channel 4 aired a documentary called The King, the Prince, and Their Secret Millions. The investigation revealed something that sparked outrage. These duchies have been charging the NHS, the armed forces, and even charities millions of pounds to use properties and land. The Duchy of Lancaster allegedly charged the NHS £11.4 million over 15 years just to store ambulances. The Duchy of Cornwall charges the Ministry of Defence for military training on Dartmoor. These are public services, funded by taxpayers, paying rent to royals who are themselves funded by taxpayers through the sovereign grant. And here's the kicker. Both duchies are exempt from corporation tax and capital gains tax. They voluntarily pay income tax, an arrangement made in 1993, but they operate commercially while avoiding commercial taxes. Think about it this way. If you ran a business that owned Dartmoor Prison, charged the military for training exercises, and collected rent from the NHS, you'd pay corporation tax on those profits. The Duchy of Cornwall doesn't. Prince William receives £23.6 million annually, and while he pays income tax on it, the duchy itself pays no corporation tax on its billion-pound portfolio. Critics argue this is a medieval loophole being exploited in the modern era. The duchies weren't included in the 1760 agreement where Crown estate profits go to the government in exchange for the sovereign grant, because back then they didn't generate much income. Now they generate over £50 million annually and operate like any commercial real estate empire, except they're exempt from freedom of information laws and don't have to disclose detailed spending. Defenders say the royals are operating like any large aristocratic family estate. Paying market rate rents is reasonable and voluntary income tax is adequate. But is it? When you're charging cash-strapped public services millions, while your own sovereign grant for 2025 is £132 million from taxpayers, the optics aren't great. The Guardian investigated and estimated £187 million in secret wills and hidden assets across generations of royals. Prince Philip's will was sealed for at least 90 years. Ordinary British citizens' wills are made public. Royal wills are locked away, preventing any scrutiny of what properties, jewelry, or money is being passed down. The sold, the secret, and the scandal. Some royal properties tell their stories through what happened to them. Take Barnwell Manor in Northamptonshire. For decades, it was home to the Duke of Gloucester, Queen Elizabeth's cousin. A 40-room, Grade II listed manor with origins dating to 1586, granted to the Montagu family by King Henry VIII in 1540. In April 2024, it sold for £4.75 million. Why? The family moved out in 1995 because they couldn't afford the £35,000 to £50,000 in annual maintenance. A royal estate, abandoned for financial reasons, sat unused for years before finally being sold. Here's the fascinating part. The grounds contain a Grade I listed castle ruin from 1266 that was built illegally. Yes, even in medieval times, someone built Barnwell Castle without permission. It's also rumored to contain secret passageways used during World War II. Then there's Llywelyn in Wales, the 3-bedroom farmhouse King Charles spent 40 years searching for. Purchased by the Duchy of Cornwall in 2006 for £1.2 million, it was his private Welsh retreat. The property was previously owned by relatives of Anne Boleyn in the 13th and 14th centuries. Charles reportedly stopped renewing the lease after summer 2023, using it less frequently after becoming king. Now it technically belongs to Prince William as the new Duke of Cornwall. 2 holiday cottages on the property can be rented by the public, but the main house remains private and far less photographed than any other royal residence. Meanwhile, at Windsor Great Park, Prince Andrew refuses to vacate Royal Lodge, a 30-room property that was the Queen Mother's home for over 70 years. King Charles reportedly wants him to move to the smaller Frogmore cottage, recently vacated by Prince Harry and Meghan. Andrew is digging in his heels, a royal property standoff playing out while Frogmore Cottage itself sits empty. If you're finding this investigation into hidden royal wealth fascinating, consider subscribing to Ghost Ledgers. We dive deep into the money trails that powerful institutions don't want exposed. Hit that subscribe button to stay informed. The properties you'll never see. Beyond the famous estates, there's a constellation of lesser-known royal properties operating in complete privacy. Birkhall, on the Balmoral estate in Scotland, is where King Charles and Camilla honeymooned in 2005. Built in 1715, purchased by Queen Victoria in 1849, and beloved by the Queen Mother, who called it the Little Big House. It's never been open to tourists. The gardens contain a hidden, heather-thatched Wendy house built for Princess Elizabeth before she became queen. Charles maintains the gardens personally, calling it such a special place, particularly because it was made by my grandmother. Thatched House Lodge in Richmond Park has been leased to Princess Alexandra, the Queen's cousin, since 1963. Private, closed, unknown to most Londoners despite being in a public park. Bagshot Park in Surrey, home to the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh, has 57 rooms, including a unique Indian-style billiard room designed by John Lockwood Kipling, Rudyard Kipling's father. It was a wedding gift from Indian princes to the Duke of Connaught. Some claim it was supposed to go to William and Kate. Instead, Edward and Sophie got it, and you'll never see inside. Even Highgrove House in Gloucestershire, famous for Charles's organic gardens with 120 plant varieties and 30 bee colonies, only opens those gardens occasionally. The house itself remains private. Hampton Court Palace has a secret grotto cellar designed by Isaac de Caus for King James I's private drinking parties. It's called the Undercroft, and while Hampton Court opened to the public in 1838 thanks to Queen Victoria, this particular cellar remains in a secluded section rarely seen by visitors. These aren't just pretty estates. They're part of a financial system that critics say operates with medieval privileges in a modern democracy. And the controversy gets even deeper. The offshore secrets and tax questions. In 2017, the Paradise Papers leaked, revealing that the Duchy of Cornwall held investments in offshore funds and companies. The palace stated these offshore investments were exited by 2019, but the revelation highlighted how royal estates use sophisticated wealth management strategies while maintaining tax advantages. Let's break down the tax situation clearly. Since 1993, the duchies voluntarily pay income tax, but they remain exempt from corporation tax, capital gains tax, and there's no inheritance tax on sovereign-to-sovereign transfers. The 1760 agreement that created this system saw Crown estate profits surrendered to the government, with 15% returned as the sovereign grant. The duchies weren't included because they didn't generate significant income back then. Today, they generate over £50 million annually and operate commercial portfolios that include supermarkets, office spaces, agricultural land, and residential properties. They charge rent to the NHS, the Ministry of Defense, and charities. Critics argue they should be subject to corporation tax like any business. They're operating commercially while avoiding commercial taxes, profiting from public bodies while tax-exempt, and need full transparency and accountability. Defenders counter that they're operating like any large aristocratic family estate, that paying market rate rents is reasonable, that voluntary income tax is adequate, and that private estates should remain private. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The royals receive a sovereign grant of £132 million for 2025, funded by taxpayers. That money theoretically covers their official duties. The duchies are supposed to be their private income, yet those duchies are charging the very public services that taxpayers fund while avoiding the taxes that those services desperately need. when a cash-strapped NHS is paying millions to store ambulances on royal land, and that royal land pays no corporation tax on the profit, something feels fundamentally broken. The Guardian's investigation into secret wills revealed an estimated £187 million in hidden assets across generations. We don't know what properties, what jewelry, what investments are being passed down, because royal wills can be sealed for 90+ years, while ordinary citizens' wills are public record. Conclusion: the bigger picture. So what have we uncovered? An empire of hidden estates worth billions. Properties where history was made that you'll never visit. Secret passages in buildings supposedly open to the public. Financial arrangements that allow profiting from public services while avoiding corporate taxes. And legal protections that keep royal wealth hidden for nearly a century. Fort Belvedere, where a king gave up his throne, remains sealed. Frogmore House sits mostly empty for 150 years, with less than a week of public access annually. Buckingham Palace has secret doors and rumored tunnels. Windsor Castle has medieval escape routes still functional today. The Duchies generate £50 million yearly, while exempt from corporation and capital gains tax. The royal family's hidden estates reveal a fascinating paradox: a publicly funded institution with vast private wealth, historical properties closed to those who indirectly support them, and architectural secrets within. Buildings supposedly open to tourists. The question isn't just what they're hiding, it's why, and whether medieval privileges should continue in a modern democracy where the NHS pays millions to store ambulances on tax-exempt royal land. These are the royal estates you're not supposed to see. Now you know they exist. The question is, what are you going to do about it? If investigations like this into hidden wealth and power structures interest you, subscribe to Ghost Ledgers. We follow the money that the powerful don't want traced. Hit subscribe and let's keep pulling back the curtain together. Thanks for watching.